To have you with us on the 9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, tonight we are going to talk about Sero survey. Now the term sounds complicated, but don't switch off. It's actually very simple. It's a form of a COVID testing. It's a surveillance measure that the experts and the authorities are right now using to understand what is the spread of the infection. What is the extent of the spread of the infection? It's simply a tool that the governments will use in our country to design their policies on tackling COVID and coronavirus. Now, let me tell you what's happened right now. There are a few other states and cities that have carried out Sero surveys, but those results are not officially out. But the one that has now been officially put in public domain is the one for our national capital. So let's understand, what does the Sero survey really tell us about Delhi? And that's what I'm going to start off with. This Sero survey was conducted between June 27th and July 10th in the national capital. It covered all 11 districts across the national capital, so each region was properly represented, and it sampled about 21,387 people. That's the sample size. The subjects were chosen at random. What did it show? It showed that about 23.48% of those who had been surveyed had been affected by COVID. Yes, you heard it. Effectively, almost 1 out of 4 people in the national capital have been affected by COVID. Now, this doesn't mean that there are 40 to 42 lakh people right now in need of urgent medical attention. This means that at some point they did catch the infection, that perhaps their bodies fought back and they recovered, and many of them probably didn't even realize. 47 lakh people, according to this survey, have developed antibodies. Patients have recovered. They didn't even show the symptoms. But while 23% have been affected, the rest are the ones who are still not yet been exposed to COVID. So a large percentage of the population is still vulnerable to a possible infection. And so the government says, and the containment measures must continue. Now, I will have experts tonight to tell us how to read this data and what should we do with it. If over 40 lakh people have been impacted, should we be concerned? Such a huge number? Or is this okay? If you compare it to other countries, if you compare it to other cities, where do we stand? The government says this is a good thing. We have managed to contain it. It actually goes on to show the efforts that have been taken by the government to prevent the spread of coronavirus. It shows effective lockdown and containment strategy and surveillance measures and contact tracing. So let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now and ask them then how to read this data. Let's say good evening to Dr. Vikas Bajpai, Assistant Professor, Center for Social Medicine and Community Health at JNU. Dr. Chandrakant Panda, former professor and head for Center for Community Medicine at AIIMS in New Delhi. I've also got Dr. Thiagarajan Sundaraman, Global Coordinator of People's Health Movement and former Executive Director of the National Health Systems, and Akshay Malate of the Aam Aadmi Party. Dr. Pandav, let me begin with you. Help our viewers understand, to say 23% of those surveyed had been impacted by COVID. How do we read this data?
I am more interested in the methodology in which the survey was conducted. I'd like to understand more about the methods. Results is interesting, but it all depends on how well you have conducted the survey. For example, you talked about 11 districts in the capital city of Delhi. These 11 districts are variable in terms of population as well as population density. That's number one. Number two, they said randomly, means what was the sampling frame? I'd like to know more about what they mean by randomly. Is it related to age, gender, any comorbidity? Where were they picked up from the houses? Is it community-based, hospital-based? So I think a lot of basic missing details I'm not aware. They must be always there in the protocol. But without this, I cannot really comment anything on the results at all. Absolutely zero comment, no comments. Because methodology is the key thing that will decide which direction the results need to be interpreted. So I want to know more about the sampling frame. Was it stratified? They said random sampling. What was the age group they were included? What was the location? So I would like to know more details about it. And I also want to understand how they calculate the sample size. How do they come with this magic figure of 24,000 or whatever number is? Who will answer these questions? Because that I can't really comment any comment. In fact, nobody who is a student of epidemiology will able to answer your question about results. He can't comment.
Okay, let me see if I can go across to Akshay Barate and see if he has some answers. Akshay?
Hi Tanvi, thank you for having me on your show. At the outset, let me say this, that the Zero survey that we are currently discussing, as a spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party, I can tell you that it is currently only having an academic interest and an academic outcome. The Delhi government is still consulting with epidemiologists and public health experts about how to interpret these results. We are not taking any decisions based on this survey as of now. It should not be seen as any kind of a movement, either positively or negatively, towards a possible solution or towards a possible herd immunity, as certain experts have suggested, because it is too early to say that if a certain sample size of 20,000 has 23% antibodies detected, then that therefore means that it can be extrapolated for the entire city. It's very difficult to say that at this point. We know very little about the virus. As somebody who's not even an epidemiologist or a public health expert, I will not stick my neck out and say that the government will now change its strategy suddenly based on this. We will have to tread very carefully. We have treaded very carefully so far in the last 3-4 months. And I think what we can really bank upon, the data that we can bank upon, is the mortality rate, because we know who are the people who have lost their lives. We can bank upon the data of hospitalizations, because we actually have that data of people coming into the system and heading out of the system. So I think these are the two critical indicators for a government to make its strategy on. We will not at this point be in a position to change or evolve our strategy based on a Zero survey that the results that have come out at this point.
Okay, all right, fair enough. That is actually quite helpful, because one would wonder how this is going to be used. At the end of the day, the Zero survey results are supposed to tell the governments on how to design their policy. In that sense, Dr. Bajpai, do you agree that maybe we need to know a little bit more about it before any government can decide? And is 21,000 sample a good enough sample for that?
Should I come in on this? My sense of it is
yes, Dr. Vikas Bajpai. Okay, we're going to go to him in just a bit. Let me also bring in Dr. Thiagarajan. Dr. Thiagarajan, what's your view?
My sense of it, firstly, there's no problem with the sample sizes. We've seen a lot of samples, though the exact way in which they calculated it is always important to know. And I agree with my good friend Dr. Pandav there. I still think that that's not the issue. The sampling design in which it was taken is an issue, and we do note that this is a rather high prevalence rate as compared to other. It's much higher than New York, London. So in some sense, we are concerned that whether the sampling design was good enough. But again, I'm going to give ICMR and NCDC the benefit of doubt on this, because this is not very unusual also, and they should know their job. So I will not assume that they have made a mistake there. But there are therefore three conclusions that I will draw very sharply. First, we are far away from herd immunity. So in terms of allowing it to go ahead, there's no it's not even under question. We have to act as if the epidemic is still very much with us and on its rising phase. The second, and this is, I think, very important, that we have a huge gap between the 47 lakh that this indicates are positive and the 1.23 lakh that we report as tested positive. Even if we put asymptomatic, like in Spain, it was one third asymptomatic, there are other places where 50% asymptomatic, we would still say that it is possible that we have been underreporting or missing reports by a huge margin. Even if we concede that the asymptomatics are higher, we are still being underreporting, and therefore, and the spread is of a degree which would make it one of the higher spreads. So there is no particular lockdown effect that we are seeing at all. We are not seeing that at all. In places with the stricter lockdowns, lighter lockdowns, we have seen less prevalence than we have over here. So we don't have a lockdown effect. We are possibly being underreporting on cases, and we have some degree. Though I still agree with Dr. Pandav that without a sampling design, we may be reporting higher than it is, but it still will be very high. So therefore, that's basically my take on it. But is this impossible to have 23%? Not so. In London, it was 1.5% in week 13, and by week 18, it had become 17%. They were taking weekly serosurveillance. So we do see these fast escalations are possible. But this 36 times gap between the reported testing positive and what you think has been infected is far too much. There has to be something that gives over here. In terms of what we need to do about it, we need to proceed as if the epidemic is still in its rising phase. I think that's the main lesson that I would do, because herd immunity is so far away and our testing reporting is so under reported that I think we need to be very concerned that we are doing more testing, and we are doing it in those chains of transmission where it is most likely to be there.
Okay, I just want to also, point out some of the international ones where we've seen these kind of studies being carried out. In Germany in April 2020, in one specific town, they found that 2% of the residents were actively infected, but if 14% had antibodies, which means that they may have, been exposed to infection earlier, and they managed to recover without even showing any signs. Similarly, in Spain, when a similar study was conducted in one part, they actually showed 5 to 6%. Now, I'm sure there were other studies also conducted with different data points. Just for 1 minute, if I had to ask Dr. Thiagarajan, that let's just say that this study carried out under the guidance and leadership of ICMR followed, the right system, and then showed us this data which said 23% showed antibodies. Then how does one read it? The fact that a quarter of people in Delhi may have been infected at some point already.
Yeah, but it's still a long way to go, because if the epidemic contains through a herd immunity, it's at 60 to 70%. So we are nowhere near that. So it's not going to, in terms of what we have, the relevance for pandemic control, we are just as we were earlier. What it shows is that our containment measures, our mitigation measures are far from satisfactory, because we are seeing one of the highest prevalence rates reported, provided, and I again take Pandav's caution, that our sampling design has been correct enough. But again, in one of the news reports, I saw that the ICMR stated that it's a multi-stage stratified sample that's been drawn. And if they've drawn it well, then we should go by this. They have to give those details, and those details are not available in the public domain. It should be published, and then we will be able to comment. But prima facie, I think we are having a lot of prevalence, much higher than has been reported from any city elsewhere. And we need to be worried about this, because our case reports are very low, and therefore we are obviously missing, and there is a spread, and we have to be actually concerned about it. And we should not be lulled about these low death reports. In India, death reporting is extraordinarily weak, and you can't be counting it at the cremation grounds. And therefore, we should be worried that we are not getting some of it rather than celebrating it. I think this whole thing calls us for greater caution and greater
Okay.
diligence in how to handle this.
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Vikas Bajpai as well. Dr. Bajpai, your view of the Sero survey that was conducted in Delhi. The government, central government, and ICMR say, well, it shows that you've managed to, properly implement your containment strategy, lockdown, and that's why it's restricted to just 23% of your population so far.
Thank you and hello. Thank you for having me on the show. I just
yes,
want
go ahead.
To
I can hear you.
I just want to make a few quick points. First of all, the prevalence of 23.48% which they have come out with, I hope it's not less than what it actually is. But presuming this, I think it clearly shows that all their claims of having controlled the pandemic, they are false. For one, because this Sero survey was done sometime in June. Okay. And before June also, the epidemic curve was rising and it kept rising after the survey also. So in what way are we to presume that with the measures taken by the government, they were able to kind of bring down the epidemic curve? Secondly, which I want to point out, you see, if we take a prevalence of around 24% in Delhi, and Delhi is estimated to have a population of 3 crores 2,91,000 as of March 2020. And given this number, this population, the total number of cases would work out to be somewhere around 71,12,327. Whereas the Delhi Health Bulletin of 16th July, it says that total positive cases are 1,18,645. Now, WHO had said in March that around 80% of the cases, they are either mild or asymptomatic. 15% of the cases, they are, severe infections, and 5% of the cases are critical infections. Now, given if we take 5% of 71 lakhs, it would come out to be somewhere around 3,55,616 cases, which ought to have been, which would be critical infections and all. And this is not my kind of data. I'm just going by what has been put out by well-recognized agencies. And then there is a report of Times of India of May 31, which says that the proportion of asymptomatic patient cases is actually less, and they are quoting an ICMR study on this. At least 28% of 40,184 people who tested positive for COVID-19 between January 22 and April 30 in India were asymptomatic, which is 28% only. So the numbers which I put out just a while back, they are taking that 80% of the infections are asymptomatic. Now, whatever is the truth, is something which needs to be investigated properly, and unfortunately the government's credibility on this count is very, very low. And I mean, I want to point to one thing over here, that we are seeing that a lot number of beds in government hospitals, they are lying vacant, whereas the beds in private hospitals, with all that tamasha and show being put up by the Home Minister and Delhi government of capping the treatment cost in private hospitals. Now, despite that, if I were to pay even the controlled prices for treatment, I cannot afford treatment in any one of these private hospitals without any kind of insurance or backing from my employer and all that, which is the Central University. So in Delhi, we have more than 50% of the population, between 50 to 70% of the population that lives in JJ clusters, in resettlement colonies, in unauthorized colonies and all. So, and even at the best times. We know it for sure, even in cities like Delhi, that a large proportion of this section, they do not have physical and economic access to institutionalized healthcare. They depend on
Okay.
non-formal or so. Given all of this, I think this survey itself, it presents a very alarming picture. Okay, and as Dr. Sundar Raman was saying, there is no reason for us to be very lax about it and feel comfortable about this. I think there is a repeated stress on that we should track, test, and treat. Now, I think it calls for an overhauling of the health system, wherein the system has to reach out to all these people and ensure that they are taken care of. Mind you, asymptomatic patients may not be having symptoms, that's all, but then they are as much capable of transmitting the infection. What about that? So we cannot draw solace from this.
Yes,
Okay.
that is true. That is one of the biggest fears, Dr.
Yeah.
Vikas, which is that even asymptomatic people may not know about it, but they are still carriers of the infection. Now, Akshay, do you want to respond to what the doctor has just said here before I move on to my next question?
Yeah, just a quick couple of points. Number one, on testing. You see, Delhi is actually the state that has the highest proportion of testing in the country. So when you have a situation where even in the state that is testing far above the grade, far above the neighboring states, even then, if the number of tested positive cases is so far below the prevalence that is being suggested by this survey, then one has to assume that the current testing capacity in the country is woefully inadequate. Let alone Delhi, across the country, it's woefully inadequate to actually epidemiologically track the pandemic. All that our testing currently appears to be doing is to find people who are in need of medical attention and provide them immediate medical care, whether in our private hospitals or government hospitals. Point number two is, the gentleman before me actually said that government hospitals are vacant, but private hospitals are not vacant. I want to clarify and assure people who are watching this show that Delhi actually has a very robust primary healthcare system through our network of mohalla clinics. So even if, let's say, somebody is not reaching the the tertiary care system in the government hospitals, these people are actually reaching the primary healthcare centers, the dispensaries, the mohalla clinics, and clearly these people do not require further hospitalization. Otherwise they would have reached out, they would have gone to LNJP, they would have gone to GTB. So I feel that there is a certain exaggeration, I think, of the alarm that is being spread after this survey's results have come out. Because if there was any person in Delhi today who is in need of hospitalization, Delhi government and Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's constant assurances, the Delhi Corona app, a lot of efforts by the media, including Mirror Now, have now created public confidence in the system that people do actually reach out to the ambulance, they call for help, they reach the hospital. So I would not take this survey to mean that we are underreporting cases on purpose, or that our hospitalization rate is actually artificially low. It would actually mean, I think, that if these many number of people are asymptomatic, that means that somewhere the strain that we have in India appears to be milder than other parts of the world, or the hospitalization rates are actually much lower, the mortality rates are actually much lower than what we have been assuming them to be, which is actually a positive sign if the results of this survey are to be taken at face value.
But Akshay, what I find interesting
Hello.
is, unlike what was said in this news briefing by the government today, your government is not quick to jump to the same conclusion, because we were told that this is a sign of a good containment strategy. This is a reflection of a lockdown and how infection has been limited to only 23%. That's not something that you are right now assuming, Akshay?
No, I think that is something for a public health expert to comment on. I would say that we must go by what the World Health Organization is saying. I don't think the World Health Organization considers a 24-25% prevalence to be an indicator of a very good containment effort from on the part of the central government. But having said that, I would still say that it does
Okay.
not necessarily mean that we must start panicking about the situation, because it does indicate that the hospitality rates, the hospitalization rate, and the mortality rate have been exaggerated from the beginning. So we have to actually look at it from a positive perspective. But like I said at the beginning of the program, the Delhi government is not changing its strategy based on this survey as of now. We are consulting epidemiologists and we will think about what to do next.
Step in, please. Dr. Pandav
Okay,
here.
Dr. Pandav, you wanted to come in. Go ahead, please.
Yes, yes. Just give it time. First is, I think this entire discussion that has taken so far, I call it as a classical example of barking at the wrong tree. I repeat, barking at the wrong tree. Number two, I'm making a statement. I'm trained at McMaster University in Canada, which is the gold standard university for training in epidemiology. So I know what I'm talking about. Number two. Number three, let me give the overall context of the pandemic. The information that the ministry has released is a classical example of pandemic of incomplete information. There are 10 pandemics going on in India. There is, of course, pandemic of COVID-19, that's fine. There's a pandemic of war information. Third is pandemic of disinformation, misinformation, distorted information. This is a pandemic of incomplete information. Why do you come to us with incomplete information? And I'll come back to that. The most serious pandemic is pandemic of fear. Fear. There is so much a fear factor that you need excellent communication strategy to give this message. In Corona, recovery is the rule. Death is an exception. 85% of the population has recovered. Death is an exception in Corona, but there is so much of pandemic of fear. Next is pandemic of migration, pandemic of migraine, pandemic of misery. You have cut down, you have stopped all our hospital services as if Corona is the only disease that exists in the world. So I'm very concerned about the way we are approaching this problem in the terms of context. Now let me come to the pandemic of incomplete information. I first admire the efforts by the Delhi government and the ICMR, but I'm sure that there is a major, strong, serious reservation in methodology I have. If you don't have right methodology, the result don't mean a damn thing. For example, let's see the good point of the survey. Study duration, June to July. Study population, that we don't have whether it's male, females, what age groups, we have no information. Study place, 11 districts of Delhi. Sample size, we have no idea. They've taken 23,000 people. How were they selected? If we assume 50% prevalence, that gives you the maximum sample size. Then study instrument, did they use any interview techniques? Then they did the blood for serum for the antibodies test. Who are the study investigators? So there are serious missing information in this information that is presented, what I call as a classical case of pandemic of incomplete information. So I can't really comment on anything on results. What we heard so far with my esteemed colleagues in discussion is just a classical case of barking at the wrong tree. Over.
What information would you be looking at, Dr. Pandav, in this survey that has been carried out for you to even begin to analyze this data?
I don't think so. I mean, I can't really further, it's like talking about results. I can give a range of results depending on methodology. If you do it in a high density, if you do it in Jhuggi Jhopri, the prevalence will be very high. If you do it in Chanakyapuri, the prevalence will be low. So there's a place variation. Then if there is study population, if you do it in males, females, age group, so there's going to be a variation. So these results to me don't mean anything, absolutely nothing. So my appeal to my colleague from Aam Aadmi Party, please get hold of the right people. I made that statement earlier also. This is a classical case of sowing not with strengths. This is a race that has to be run by a rabbit. And you have called fish to give advice. Fish is very good in swimming. Eagle is very good in flying. Rabbit is very good in running. You have missed upon the rabbits. Who are the rabbits? Who are the public health experts, epidemiologists, behavioral scientists, management experts, logistic experts. I'm crying horse on this particular issue. They are good people in their own respective discipline. This discipline, we have learned it from the smallpox eradication program and in my own program in iodine deficiency disorders, where we have got a public health success story. So we're calling the wrong experts to give the. So what do you expect if you call wrong experts? I did MBBS MD from AIIMS. Would you permit to do a cardiothoracic surgeon operation? No. This is a specialized discipline. I'm trying horse on this. When will you please wake up? This is a very serious issue. You have wasted time, money, resources in terms of carrying
Well,
out this
Akshay,
activity. Sorry, ma'am. So I'm very really concerned
okay.
about it. So
Point noted, and I hope the governments actually have a wise panel of experts recommending them and part of the COVID task force. Sorry, I believe, Akshay, you wanted to say something? Okay.
No, I said
let
in life there are only
let me go ahead and say
two
good
types of
evening to
people in
Dr.
this.
S.K. Sarin, who is joining us, Director of the Institute of Liver and Biliary Sciences. Dr. Sarin, thank you so much. We've got a heated debate and few experts with very clear views on how this data should be read. Some of them say shouldn't be read at all. That's the view of Dr. Chandrakant Panda, who was just speaking, until we get more information. But the government tells us that 23% of those surveyed under the Sero survey in Delhi did show antibodies and have been affected by COVID. And that this is a good sign that only this much percentage of the population has been impacted so far, and that's happened because of our good lockdown strategy and a good containment strategy. But we should not let our guard down. The rest of the 77% of the population is still vulnerable. What is your own view? Help us understand where you stand on this conversation.
Well, I partly heard Dr. Pandav, and let's first do this face value of the data. On the face value, if Delhi's population is 2 crores and 130,000 have been found to be positive, it means 0.6% were found to be positive. But when you do the exposure, 23% have been exposed. So in a way, 21% got the antibodies, what a vaccine would have given you, without having to suffer the disease or the infection or even being noticed and having been traumatized. So in that way, if you think 1 in 5 or 4 Delhiite has got the antibodies, now the question remains, is it one time? So there were some reports in May and June when the ICMR did the surveys across the country. Just about 0.7% of the population had the serosurveillance had antibodies against corona. But today, if the Delhi was excluded, so if you take it that way, nearly 20 times more people have got this. So there is a small community spread, but without harming the community. And if you look at this, I would say by another few months, and the surveys must be done repeatedly. Cross section is not enough. Repeated survey or longitudinal surveys are required. Let's say we repeat it after 4 weeks and we find 35% of Delhi, but only 0.5% infected, 12% more got the antibody. I think it's a good sign in the long run. But there are two other caveats to this. Are these antibodies enough to protect you? I would say still people should not take it. These are just exposure markers. Are the levels enough? We do not know. These are just one time. So people should continue to have the practices. Another question is whether this survey, as Dr. Pandav also said, has it included females? Has it included elderly? Well, these are questions which we cannot. But I would say from the knowledge that we have, and we did about 3,000 of these samples out of 20,000 or so in Delhi at ILBS, we would say the antibody formation even at younger or middle age or elderly, the levels of antibody and the positivity of antibody was reasonably good. So I think one thing which should be taken away from the mind of people that adult people, elderly people have a poor immune response and they do not make antibodies to the level and corona can kill them fast. The elderly still make good antibodies. So there are several good parts of this survey. However, we have to wait till we get the vaccine. But the 77% of the people, who are they? If they don't make antibodies, are they depressed? Let's say out of 20,000, you have 15,000 who don't have antibody. Are they depressed? I would say they should be happy in a way that you never got infected, but also you maybe some of them may be there who never make antibodies. There may be people, and this is true of any infection. I work on hepatitis B. Some 7% never make antibodies despite a vaccine. So we need to know the 77% what happens to them in their natural course in the next coming months. I think this Sero survey has given us a lot of information. I feel it's a positive thing. We should have larger surveys, repeated surveys, and all of us should continue to use the same level of commitment for eradication. And most important of them is wearing a good mask. Don't let the others get infected. It is your responsibility as well as others that you don't get infected.
Okay, point well taken. I do have a follow-up question for you, but I think Dr. Vikas,
Hello, ma'am.
Dr. Vikas Bajpai wanted to make a point. Go ahead, Dr. Vikas Bajpai first.
Yeah,
After that,
I
I would
just
like
want
to make a point.
that the whole purpose of prevention strategy is to stop infections and not to take a post facto credit that so many got infected without actually getting more severe forms of disease. You see, this survey has not tested whether what was the severity of the disease, what were the symptoms and all that. All that we have is that zero surveillance was done in certain proportion of people, and we have come out with this figure of 23.48, presuming it to be true. The purpose of preventive strategy is to prevent infection to anyone as such, and I mean, we cannot really presume from this that antibodies have been generated in 1/4 of the population, so they are protected and all that. I think that's something which we should be very, very wary of. Thank you.
Please, ma'am.
No, I understand. And in fact, my question today, the larger question that I was asking was actually about how do you use a zero survey result to design your policies? I mean, if you're conducting this, and we have repeatedly told that zero surveys are supposed to help you judge the extent of infection so you can design your COVID policy accordingly, then where do we go from here? That's what a common man would want to understand. Dr. Pandav, you wanted to make a point?
Yes, first let me answer your immediate question. You have to have evidence-based information to make informed decision making. Is this survey evidence-based? I have my serious reservation. I will, my friend from Aam Aadmi Party, I would like to take a seminar tomorrow day after, because I'm based in Delhi only, on studying a study and testing a test. 2 ghante, 3 ghante, I would like to spend time with you. This is a classical example of how we have really not done.
But Dr. Pandav, let me just inform you that Akshay Marathe had to leave because he had other prior commitments as well, so he is not on the panel anymore.
उनके पास संदेश पहुंचना चाहिए. ये fundamentals है. I think we are missing the basic fundamentals of epidemiology. A primer called studying a study and testing a test. We are focusing our discussion only on studying a test. I won't come to the second part at all. Testing a test. Dr. Sareen, I would like to understand in the hierarchy of tests, where does the IgG stands? Which is the gold standard for COVID? That's number one. Number two, where were the samples analyzed? There are 3 things you must understand about the test. One is the acceptability, second is the reliability, and third is the validity. I use now the acceptability. There must be some refusal. You said you select people were selected randomly. Not everybody must have agreed. There must be some refusal. You have to take a note of those refusals. There's a serious implication in terms of the results of the study. Number 2, reliability and repeatability. There is an intra-observer variation, there is an instrumental variation, there is an intra-observer variation, there is a biological variation. Now, these things have not been spelled out. They might be having volumes of that, but at least, as I said, this is a pandemic of incomplete information. Give us the complete information. That's what my association is also pleading with the government, Indian Public Health Association. Number 3, validity. I use the word specificity and sensitivity. Specificity and sensitivity, that's not the right epidemiological word. It's only a step. I would like to understand what is the validity, what is the positive predictive value of these tests.
Okay.
Now, the tests have been done in multiple labs.
Well, I do have a question for Dr. Tyagarajan, but Dr. Pandav, let me take this across to Dr. Sareen and see if he wants to, if he has a response for you. Yes.
I would briefly say I was not at all involved in any way into this survey. The whole design was by the government of maybe India. None of us had any idea of the survey or the results of this survey. So please do not ask me these questions, but your questions may have some relevance to people who have, and your points may be taken care of. So in no way we selected or were randomized or who refused and who came. And your points from a very experienced epidemiologist are valid. But what I'm saying, and I want to make it again, that if that is the way Delhi has developed, let's say you're a common man. A common man would say that, okay, 23% are exposed. So is it because we were not able to contain it? Or is it because there was a herd immunity? To understand it simply, there were exposures. People were moving around at a time without a mask. They were moving in the bus, but they transmitted the infection. They made the other people infected, but these guys somehow survived. They never had symptoms. They were asymptomatic or absolutely not known. So this is my message, is that 1/4 of the Delhi got it without having going to hospital. Now, how do you do further? Well, I think my preference would be to keep these 77%, identify whether they were green zones, whether they were orange, they were red, containment, non-containment. We need to go very fast into a larger area and say that those who were not exposed should not get the virus. Otherwise, Delhi will have a second surge. It can have another wave in few days, and then you will say, well, we didn't do enough. Don't spend that much energy and time in the areas where you already have got. So the message is, these areas, these pockets have got people who have got antibodies now. It is very well known. Even if you don't have high levels of antibodies, even small antibody is somewhat protective. The next infection may occur, but will be much milder in those who have got antibodies. So my message to you is to move forward and find out and advise everybody whom you can advise. But the survey has a message, and we should move forward. Maybe we should repeat the same survey in end of July, repeat another one in end of September and August, and then see how Delhi has moved, which areas are vulnerable, where should you focus your energy much more. And of course, studies are studies. We should design better studies for publication.
No, okay, I understand that. I'm running out of time, but very quickly, Dr. Thiagarajan Sundaraman, if I can bring you in on this conversation. Dr. Thiagarajan, while Delhi Sero survey is the only one that's been made public, though in a limited fashion right now, which shows the current statistics, there have been media reports that suggest that if the Sero survey that was carried out in a crowded cluster in Ahmedabad showed 40% impact in crowded clusters of Mumbai city, the slum areas. It showed similar 36% impact. So obviously it could differ basis where you're doing it, who's your demography, and what's the kind of density. But how do authorities use this? What would ideally a Maharashtra government do with a Sero survey that says 40% have been impacted in Dharavi, or a Delhi government do with a report that says 23% have been impacted across 11 districts in your city?
So the thing that the governments must do is ask for the full paper. And I think this point, Dr. Pandav must also recognize that what we have now is a press release, which is a summary statement of 2 or 3 lines. And we are reacting on that. We should ask, and it is a correct point to ask for that to be put up on the public domain, and not perhaps rush to a press release till the whole paper is out. At least if there was a particular thing, it should be followed up very soon with a paper. If we have a paper, all these detailed things will be there, and it should be reasonably peer reviewed. Nowadays, people do it very fast. Within a week, you can get that done. And once you have a peer reviewed paper, then you should accept that data. Can't go on shooting the messenger just because the message doesn't suit you. That, I think, is what at some point there is a correct point in Panda's raising, that we need more details about the methodology. But on that, to assume that they have done it without a methodology is just not really fair game on that. Having said that, in the number of other surveys also, the same process problem is there. Because his point is valid. If they have used different methodologies, then you are not quite comparable. Because suppose you choose only people who have fever, then you are going to have had fever, then you will have a much higher prevalence. If you have chosen, how you have chosen your samples matter. So in some sense, a comparative thing requires a scientific study that is published, that it shows actually comparison between these studies. Now, when you are in the middle of an epidemic, you are not going to be able to do all of that. But least we can do is to understand and compare on a sensible basis. There are institutions that can do that now without much difficulty. And I think the government should rely upon that part of the scientific community that can produce this information. And we do need this evidence. What we need with zero surveillance,
All right.
as many countries in the world are doing, is to do this repeatedly.
Yes.
Maybe every month in a number of places, you should do a sample zero surveillance so that you can see the trend. The trend is more important than the absolute number also.
Yes, absolutely. Well, on that note, I'm going to thank all of our panelists. It's been a great, insightful conversation with experts really sharing
Can I say
their
something,
view
please?
on the data that has been put out.
Yes.
Cannot be really taking on face value, but of course, zero surveys are a tool, are a mechanism that the governments will use on a regular basis to really see which way we are headed, what's the extent of infection. Perhaps on this one, more details need to emerge before the experts can actually really analyze it and understand. And that's what the Delhi government is also going to do before they design their policy. Completely out of time on this conversation. On the other hand, we've got some big stories lined up for you. Stay with me.